Good evening and welcome to Bronx Talk. Earlier this year, the New York City Council passed a bill that revamped the Advisory Youth Board within the Department of Youth and Community Development, DYCD, requiring that 3 of the seats on the 28-member board be occupied by youth, giving the city's young people a direct voice in shaping the programs that impact their lives. Well, similarly, tonight's show comes out of the Department of City Planning, known as DCP, that has installed a youth engagement curriculum in Mott Haven's Laboratory School of Finance and Technology that not only introduces planning and public engagement concepts to a new group of students each year, and it helps them, of course, become stronger advocates and leaders in their communities, but also as part of the 8-week curriculum, they have students develop their own planning proposals to tackle real issues in their neighborhoods, including challenges around housing, transportation, and public space. So tonight we'll review the DCP program and also meet a student who is an award-winning student, by the way, who has participated in it to see what they've come up with for the South Bronx. Please join me in welcoming the DCP's transportation planner and young VIP co-lead, Jack Darcey. Mr. Darcey, nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
And ladies and gentlemen, a little drum roll, please. A 2025 graduate. She just graduated yesterday. And the student council president of the Laboratory School of Finance and Technology. I'll tell you about her award in a little while. It's Alessandra Cortes. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Mr. Darcey, as I suggested at the beginning, I'm excited about this. This is a way, just like that bill in the City Council gave young people a voice, this is a way of engaging them in their own communities. What's it about? When did the program get started? How did you put it into place, and what were the goals?
The youth engagement program started about 4 years ago, a little bit more than 4 years ago, and it grew out of really a desire to explore different ways of engagement with different parts of the public who we maybe weren't seeing at other public meetings or other engagement events. And so it grew out of what we call the Civic Engagement Studio at City Planning, which is a group of employees who decide to pursue a type of engagement. So a group of employees decided that we weren't really getting young voices commenting on our projects or producing new proposals, and decided, let's try to figure out how to encourage more young people to share their voice in planning.
You said you didn't get input from them. You got input after the fact when something was built or something was changed, and then young people were like, wait a minute, you never talked to me. And so you couldn't figure it out. But after all, this is really important because, after we're all gone, they're the ones who are going to inherit it. They
Exactly.
may as well have input into it.
Exactly. And, every project that happens in the city is better if the people who are going to live there or live around there have a voice and are able to shape it in some way. And so by inviting young people to learn about planning and to actually propose projects in their own neighborhood, I think we can probably improve the planning process and the developments for all New Yorkers.
I hadn't thought about this. Do you think that after some of these projects are presented, then the powers that be at the Department of City Planning are going to say, that's not a bad idea, and figure out, of course, how to get it funded and do?
I think that we've already sort of seen a lot of interest from the powers that be at City Planning and at other agencies,
and hopefully developers and others who have the funding.
Yeah,
and those things.
one of the nicest and for me the coolest thing about participating in this youth engagement program is the students present their final projects, and we invite a lot of people from different agencies to hear directly from the students. And learn about their proposals for addressing some challenges in their communities. And we've seen some real interest from not only city planning, but from transportation, from housing preservation and development, from different agencies, also from local bids or community organizations that really are kind of excited by some of the approaches the students are presenting.
In a way, it's simple. Was it created, just by a bunch of DCP people sitting around a table and saying, let's come up with this? Or was there a model that was followed? Or is this really, like New York City originated, that we've created this?
So I think the youth engagement model definitely exists all around the country. For our Department of City Planning, there was a desire to engage young people in ways we hadn't been doing that, and so we reached out, through Department of Education to see if there were schools that would be interested in partnering in this. And the school that Alessandra just graduated from, the Laboratory School of Finance and Technology, said, let's build a curriculum. Let's build a full semester's curriculum. And we said, yes, please, let's do that. So working with some great teachers there, we developed this curriculum.
And I have to say, well, then congratulations to the principal and the leaders of that school,
Yes.
recognizing where they're located in Mott Haven and recognizing that young people are living in the neighborhood, they may as well have some say. Alessandra, thank you so much for joining us. Just about you, were you always interested in these kinds of things? You are, the student class president, so you've always been a leader of sorts. But at what point did you say, oh, this is something good I ought to do?
I think just being introduced to this, and I've kind of always had a slight interest in just like civic action and making sure that I'm always being a leader for my community, especially like my school community, for example. I am part of, for example, the school leadership team, in which I listen and I talk to different people that are part of my school community. And then, like you mentioned, being part of student council, being student council president, meeting with all the students from my class every week,
Right.
every so often.
So this gave you a chance to say, well, now wait a minute, I'm going to be a leader, but now I'm going to have real effect, right?
Yes.
That you got to really. So talk a little bit about. So it's 8 weeks in the curriculum, and it's for seniors, right?
Yes.
Mostly.
Yeah. 12th grade,
12th grade
government class.
And so what did you do in there, and what was it that inspired you so much? We're going to look at some of her work, et cetera, et cetera. Just talk about what happened in the class.
Yeah, so it was a mix of just lessons about what it is to be a city planner, a couple lessons on just like poverty, on New York City rules, on housing, because there were different segments. There was the housing group, the transportation group, and me as part of the transportation group, we honed in a lot about the local spaces in which there is a lot of transportation. My group specifically focused on the hub at 149th, and we focused
Only
on
250,000 people go through there every day.
Yes.
So let's be clear about that. Just 250.
Yeah, and we focused specifically on the Roberto Clemente Plaza that is nearby, and us being local students, us being students that walk through that area every day to go to school, to go back home. I mean, it was really important for us, and that was our biggest just like takeaway, making sure that we looked at an area that we were very familiar with and hone into the issues that we are very aware of.
Yeah. Well, I have sat in traffic on 149th Street trying to get past there as recent as last week, and so I certainly understand it. But based on what you said about yourself, and now that here it is, students, here's this curriculum, I'm guessing you were like, wow, this, and your classmates felt, wow, this is really good, because we see what goes on. Listen, we know that there's drug use at Roberto Clemente Plaza, and you folks have to go by there every day. There's all kinds of people all over, especially in that part of the Bronx. So I'm guessing this was like, wow, this is what school should really be about.
Yeah.
She actually, right? That's what it was like.
Yeah, it was authentic to say.
It was authentic because it related to your life. So did you have to train teachers to run the program?
So the program is a partnership between 8 of us from City Planning, and this year we worked with Hope Grossman-DeVore, who we've partnered with for a few years, as well as Bria Lina. So they're teachers.
Who are the names of the teachers?
Those are the teachers in the government class that Alessandra was a part of. And so we worked to develop the curriculum together. And then I would say about half of the time, people from City Planning go to the school and deliver the lessons or lead the activities, and roughly half the time the teachers take on the materials and lead the lessons.
You know,
so it's really a partnership.
Everything you're saying to me is like checking all the boxes. So here are city officials, here are people who work for a city agency. They must have loved it. They must have loved the idea of saying, you know what, I want to explain to you when we, got to take down a roadway or whatever it is that you do, or put up a housing project, what goes into it, and have people sitting at the edge of their seats like Alessandra was. But it just seems like that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, for us, for planners, being able to, first of all, talk about our work is wonderful, but then also to have a group of students who are actually telling us more than we would ever learn from anyone else because they live in the community. It's a really amazing experience. And every year that we have done this youth engagement program, more planners want to join the team. So we keep building the team to be even bigger, which I think is fantastic.
And we're not quite at a point where we can say this project was done as a result. We may get there at some point.
So yeah, I mean, the program that
I'm rooting for them. I can't help it. I'm rooting for it.
The program that we run in the school is not even about any single project. It's a way to really do two things. One is to just build up the language and the skills and the knowledge about being a civically engaged citizen, knowing how to, share your voice about planning issues going on in your community, number one. And number two, to show that, hey, this is a career that a lot of people do, but most people might not know about it. Most of us at City Planning didn't know that city planning was a job until we're like in our mid-20s.
Well, she didn't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's really great to be able to share what we do and that we're passionate about, and some students will also adopt that passion.
So I will teach Alessandra something from sitting in this seat all the time, all these years. One of the biggest issues is, and I hear this all the time from all different neighborhoods in the Bronx, we never do a plan. It's like somebody gets a piece of property and then they build it. And somebody says, we're going to do this, and they build it. But nobody ever looks at the community and says, what you have been through is very, very important. We have a quote, by the way, and I want to just verify it, that the Chancellor of the City of New York said something very, very dramatic about it. She said, this curriculum exemplifies what happens when we empower our youth with the tools to shape their own communities. The proposals that they've developed demonstrate incredible thoughtfulness about real-life community concerns and highlight the unique perspective young people bring to community development and city planning. I am so proud of what these students have accomplished, and there it is from the Chancellor of the City of New York, Melissa Avalos Ramos. What about working with other students? I'm guessing if everybody's kind of interested in it, as opposed to a science project where usually there's like one or two people who are interested, and then the others are like, well, you guys do that and we'll sign our names to it. It must have been an educational process as well to sit around a table or however you did it with other students.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely even bonding, because it's all these students that, we live around the same area. Some of us spend more time near the train. Some of us spend less time near the train. I mean, I know, I'm close enough to my school that I can walk, but I have, a friend who has to take the train all the way from, Gun Hill, and she has to take a long time.
That's a pretty good ride.
Yeah. So having those conversations and just having the conversations where we share just common interests and common issues that we are all facing.
I'll tell you an anecdote which is in my own real life. A friend of mine is a college professor, and he told me when he goes into the classroom, it used to be he'd have to tell students settle down because they were all talking to each other. Now when he goes into the classroom, it's quiet and they're all looking at their phones. So having the opportunity to sit around the table and actually talk to each other is very healthy in many, many ways. What did you learn about your neighborhood? Like going around and analyzing some things, looking at it in a different way. You must have learned a lot about your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Name one, name two. Tell us what you learned.
Okay, so we did have a little trip where we went to go visit our project site. So we went to go visit the hub at 3rd Avenue. And we learned that there's the bid that's right in front of it.
Business Improvement
Yes,
District.
the Business Improvement
3rd
District.
Avenue bid. I know it well.
we walked past by it every day. We had no idea that it was even there. And then they have like a little shed that's right there that's full of cleaning supplies. And I had no idea that was even there. And
that there was
something.
even somebody that was outside
Yes.
the Department of Sanitation with their big trucks who really cared about the community.
Yes, exactly.
That's an eye-opening thing for me to hear and for all of us to hear, because there are bids all over the borough of the Bronx. And so I'll ask a very forward question. We should do all we can to empower these, because if the city can't handle some of this stuff, then that in and of itself is an education.
Yes.
So here's the thing. I got lists and I got all kinds of paperwork about all the different projects. Let's see, there was Project Evangeline that would provide for affordable low-income homes. There was Elevate the Deegan, which was another proposal. Now, that wasn't your transportation
That wasn't
proposal, right? And so there were a whole bunch of them, but let's talk about you and your project. So at what point in the 8 weeks did you start working on your project?
I'd say somewhere, maybe a little bit before the halfway mark, we started investigating and researching different aspects that contribute to the issues that are being faced around the area. So a big part that we looked at was like poverty statistics, things such as rent burden.
I have to say that's maybe the underlying concept for all of these issues. But go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, things like rent burden is also really important. The street cleanliness, things like that. We honed into that and we looked into it and we researched. And then from there, kind of just getting a good vision of what we really wanted, researching different areas that we can be inspired by. I know a lot of us, we looked at like areas in Manhattan, which is kind of sad to think about, that we couldn't think of areas in our own neighborhood that we wanted inspiration from.
That you wanted to model them after. So did you go downtown? And
we
look at
didn't
some?
go downtown with our school,
Right.
but there were some times where like me and my classmates would go downtown for other trips.
I am so happy to hear that, right? Because basically, in addition to doing the specifics, you created a social dynamic that didn't exist before between young people who were talking to each other. Again, check, check, check. We like all of that, and so here I'm just talking it out based on what you say. So you walk by areas around the hub, and I know the area very well. As I said, I used to have an office in that area. And you saw garbage on the street, and you didn't think twice about it because you said, well, these are just the conditions we had.
Yeah.
And then when you went, I don't know where, to the First Avenue and 85th Street, and you said, wow, everywhere doesn't look like this, then you start to talk to your friends and say, wait a minute, why can't we have this?
Yeah.
Oh, I like this so much. And so then let's just talk about the curriculum. Where in the 8 weeks did you say, okay, this is the project I want to do? Now, there were 70 students, right?
Around 70 students
70
across 3 classes. Yep.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The time where we actually chose our project was more towards the beginning. We researched, for example, some people did the major, the Deegan Expressway,
Right.
and we just looked at different areas, but I guess just me and my group felt more inclined to the hub because it's an area that
Because
we're
there's
very familiar.
250,000 people that
Yeah.
ride through there every day. How many students in your group?
There was about 6 or 7 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, like I mentioned, we had this vision for our project.
What is
And
that
then-
vision?
So we looked at...
I should say, we'll take a look at it. It's a very complicated presentation. It's a very intricate presentation. This wasn't just, hey, we'll show you some pictures and please clean up the garbage. This was a real plan.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So a big inspiration that we did get was from like the Union Square Market, because a big part of the hub is the street vendors. Mm-hmm. And because there are so many street vendors, we wanted to relocate the space because that area is very crowded. The sidewalk is very crowded. And with that, we wanted to relocate them on to the Roberto Clemente Plaza. And with that, it would save a lot of space because pedestrians aren't able to walk as freely through that area.
You talked to the bid about those things?
Yeah, we did.
And they said, it's not a bad idea?
Yeah.
Well, now we're going to have the
compared
first one that's going to be implemented. And so that was one thing that you looked at. I have to ask this because, again, I know what goes on at Roberto Clemente Plaza. There are drug users there and all that. That has to be dealt with in some form.
Yeah.
Did you look at those kinds of things as difficult as? Because if you can solve that, we've got teams of people that haven't figured it out. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so one method that we wanted to look into was just, obviously, these are real people who are dealing with real issues, and
see, that's the compassion of young people. Go ahead. That's fine.
And so we wanted to provide them with help and provide them with people who are going to not only give them advice, but people who are going to be able to help them and send them to facilities in which they are going to be getting the help that they need.
And so that is a much more complicated question than just moving some vendors to, but and I appreciate that you even addressed it. What other aspects of the plan do you how many students did you say you worked with?
There were about 6 of us.
6 of us. And what other things in the plan that you think are worth telling about that you came up with?
Another aspect of our plan was the street lamps, because around that area, when it gets dark, it gets pretty dark, and when we walk past, I mean, it's a little scary to walk past an area with a lot of users, a lot of crime, and with that, we wanted to incorporate more lampposts, and lampposts that have measurements in case of any emergencies.
So you could have an emergency box or something like that. And then, I don't want to be nasty about it, but when you walk down to the Upper West Side and you walk down and you saw all the street lamps there, or you saw how well lit they were and how quiet the neighborhoods were at night, you said, we can get there too.
Yeah.
This is, Jack, this is so great. I just think it's great. When you hear, now, I said we were going to mention you won the Eagle Award at graduation.
I did.
What is the Eagle Award?
The Eagle Award is an award that is given to one student every year, in which,
you.
Yeah, it was me. One student every year that encompasses the different values at my school, such as leadership, reflection, what else? Compassion.
And somebody who's going to help us change the world for the better. Okay, I added that. But for you, Mr. Darcey, let's just talk about where we're going in the future of this and what ultimately you're going to keep doing with. Does it need to be transformed? More resources, I get that. But so where are we at, and how do you look at the future?
So I think the ideal goal is to be able to do youth engagement all over the city, right? Everywhere.
Not only at this high school.
Well, we've had a great partnership, which we're going to continue, with the Laboratory School of Finance and Technology, but we've also been exploring options of, are there schools in other boroughs that we can partner with?
Yes.
Implement, a similar curriculum.
Yes, I say yes.
We would love to say yes too. And are there other models of youth engagement, like doing after-school programs, or doing even like smaller scale, one-day events where we're presenting ideas and maybe doing workshops for younger people? It's really something that we want to continue to evolve and continue to grow. Resources are a challenge, as you mentioned.
Sure, yeah, it's easy for me to say, go to every school. Yeah, sure.
But yeah, we continue to do that. We continue to talk with whoever wants to talk with us.
I've got to ask you this. You are a transportation planner.
Yes.
How has this changed your perception of what your responsibilities are, of transportation planning and those things? I'm guessing that not only are we influencing young people, but for you and your colleagues, this is a bit of an education. That's what schools are for.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a two-way street, right? It definitely is an education for the planners who participate in this. I feel like as a planner who's gone through a particular education and then you're in a role, we learn about best practices and we learn about norms, and sometimes you think that there's like an answer to an issue. And then when you talk to people who maybe haven't been formalized in that same education, you
Nudge
say,
the
hey,
young
there are
woman
other
next to you."
ideas here, right? There are other ways of approaching this. There are other perspectives that we don't always get to take into account just because of
And so
what
all
we've
your
gone through.
schooling and training and analysis and looking at transportation systems, not only in New York, but all over, I'm sure, the world, and concepts. And then there's still something in there that can teach you something.
Of course there is, yeah. And another thing that I'll mention is young people have different ways of getting around the city, for example, right? That are different than maybe the loudest voices we usually hear at other public meetings. And so the concerns that young people bring up regarding transportation are different also.
Well, we heard from Alessandra that she has a close friend who doesn't live in her neighborhood.
Right.
And the realities for that student riding the number 5 train all the way down, that's part of that whole experience.
Right.
Just a couple of minutes left, Alessandra. So, what do you come away from this experience with that you will take? Now, you're going to college somewhere?
Yes.
Do
Yes.
tell.
I'm going to Pace University
Very good.
this fall, so I will be staying
right
in the
next
city.
door to our offices.
Pace University.
In the
At
city,
first, I
yes.
was thinking in Westchester,
The
but no, of
Pleasant-
course, downtown.
Yes, I
Oh,
will be
how
staying in the
exciting.
city. Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, I'll be majoring in childhood education.
Wow.
So I will be an educator. And yeah, I'd say this has just all brought me to just be more engaged in my community.
I'm guessing also that, so you're going to be working with young people, that your understanding of the dynamic that you learned from this, of working with others and collaborating with others, is going to come in handy in
Yes.
that, in the way that you look at the kids and help them work together.
Yes.
Final question then, Mr. Darcey, what do we want to tell the general public to get your school involved, to reach out to DCP? What's the final word?
Reach out to city planning, go to your public meetings, go to your community board meetings, go to public info sessions. Whenever there's a planner from city planning, introduce yourself, talk
Say,
to
hey,
them.
I saw Jack and Alessandra on BronxTalk.
That's right. We want to expand this program as much as we can, and to do that, we need partnerships and connections. So,
And as much as you know what you're doing and you have plans, the more people you talk to, the more input you get.
Precisely.
Listen, Alessandra, I'm going to get right behind you and follow you wherever you go.
Thank you.
You are just one of the great young people of the Bronx. Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate that.
And Jack Darcey, thank you so much. We
Thank you very much.
appreciate it. And we appreciate our friends at DCP for bringing them in. And that's it for the show. That concludes the program. We want to thank producer Rebecca Hammock, our BronxNet production and editing crew, and of course to you too. If you can't tell already, it's you that's most important. It's the people of the Bronx. We'll see you next time. Good night.